Let's get back to politics and the subject of race. Outspoken Conservative Ann Coulter has a lot to say about, well, just about everything, in fact. The new subject of her new book is Mugged, Racial Demagoguery from the 70s to Obama. It's dedicated to, quote, the freest black man in America, and we'll discover who that is. Ann Coulter, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I know you've been struggling with a bit of a cold.
Yes, you have an unfair advantage tonight.
You've been whining about it incessantly for the last hour and saying that you think you may die during this interview, which is going to be a huge ratings booster for me. So thank you.
I would only not cancel on you. All day I was lying in bed thinking, I can't cancel this because of a scheduling mishap a year ago. Well, I did you a bad turn.
As we say in Britain, you bottled it last time. You just didn't fancy your chances. Now, let's turn to race, because very timely, this book, for the discussion today about John Sununu. So there you have John Sununu, 11 days ago to the election. Up he pops on my show last night. And for reasons that still baffle me, when I asked him a straightforward question, a political question, do you think Colin Powell should stay in the Republican Party if he's going to keep voting for the Democrats, which seemed to me, again, as a Brit, call me misguided, but a fairly logical question. Off he went on this rant about, well, you know what, mate, there's another reason for all this. Nods, nods, wink, wink, and it's basically because he's black and so is Barack Obama. Put your dispassionate hat on, if you may, for a moment. What did you make of that? Was he just being stupid?
I think it's probably not true. There are a lot of Republicans who often vote for the Democrats. In fact, I secretly suspect that John McCain voted for Obama in the last election. But I don't think it's such a terrible thing. I mean, a lot of Irish Catholics voted for JFK because he was the first Irish Catholic president. I mean, I don't think it's a slander upon Colin Powell to say this, though I don't particularly think it's true. I think
but the slander isn't that he voted for Barack Obama. It's why.
Because he's black. Yeah. I don't think that's such a terrible thing to say. Like I say, lots of Irish Catholics voted for JFK just because he was an Irish Catholic.
Right, but John Sununu has assumed that was the motivation behind what Colin Powell has done. Colin Powell has never used that as the reason for why he's voted for Obama.
Yeah, I think he's probably wrong, but I just don't think it's such a terrible thing to speculate about.
Yes, but if you play the race card in putting into Colin Powell's mouth words he hasn't actually used for his reasoning, that's just playing a race game, isn't it? A rather unpleasant race game.
Maybe, but I bet there are a lot of black people who are very proud of having the first black president. I don't hold that against them.
That's totally irrelevant to what I just said. It's not about black people voting for a black president. It's about the motivation of Colin Powell, a four-star retired general, a great statesman, making a decision based, as he put it, very clearly, on politics, on foreign policy, on issues. To then have that condensed by John Sununu to, actually, it's just because he's black, and so is Barack Obama.
But that's what your question was.
But you didn't answer it. You did a Sununu on me. You went off on some weird tangent.
I don't think it's that weird tangent. I don't think it's that slanderous. I also don't think it's true.
What isn't true?
That it's only because he's black. I think Colin Powell is liberal. So is John McCain.
So you actually agree with me?
Well, I agree with the bottom line. I just think it's kind of a tempest in the teapot. If it were the case, if Colin Powell said, I'm voting for him because he's the first black president, I wouldn't think that's outrageous.
Is America a more or less racist country since Barack Obama became president?
I think it's not a racist country. As I say in the book, I think there are more child molesters than genuine racists in America.
But you actually believe that?
I can save you a lot of time. Anything I say, I actually believe.
Do you?
Yes, and I think I marshal a fair amount of evidence to demonstrate that. I think more of the problem is the accusations of racism, and that does drive the races apart, because you have white people walking on eggshells, terrified they're going to say some word that's going to be deemed, you know, an incipient Klan sentiment, and that's why the crux of my book is the turning point at the OJ verdict, when I think white America saw black people cheering the acquittal of an obviously guilty black celebrity and said, that's it, the white guilt bank is shut down. Not only did that help race relations, it specifically helped black people as Republican policies that had been pushed for years but demagogued as racist, law and order, welfare reform, were actually able to be implemented, helping black people most of all. I mean, helping everyone, but helping. Giuliani's policies in New York saved tens of thousands of black lives, and I don't know if he would have been able to continue with his very tough on crime policies, which were in fact demagogued as racist while he was implementing them, if you didn't have this change in feeling in America where people were just sick of hearing of being accused of racism.
Let's take a little break, now we've warmed you up, because you called the president a retard this week. You're laughing, most people aren't. Let's discuss after the break.
I struggled with it myself for a long time, but I came to realize life is that gift from God. And I think even when life begins in that horrible situation of rape, that it is something that God intended to happen.
Those are rape comments from Richard Murdoch that sparked a firestorm in this election. I'm sure that Ann Coulter has a view on that. What is your view on that? I haven't actually heard a view from you on this yet.
I think all Republican candidates apparently need to go through some sort of cattle prodding to learn to just say exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. Is that so hard to get out of your mouth?
Is that your belief?
For the law, yeah. I mean, if you're talking, these guys start to get philosophical, as I'm sure Richard Murdoch was doing there. Look, it's one thing if a woman decides to bring a child to term after she's been raped. There are a lot of cases where an abortion would be indicated, or you would be sympathetic toward the woman. Tim Tebow, Jack Nicholson, Andrew Breitbart. Thank God their mothers didn't abort them. Yet and still, we're talking about someone running for a position to make laws. And should the state require a woman to carry her rapist child to term? No. And moreover, could we keep our eye on the ball here? We live in a country where you can abort a baby up until it's been born alive. When Barack Obama was in the Illinois legislature, he required hospitals to, if in a botched abortion, if the baby is inadvertently born alive, the doctors have to go chasing the baby with a fire extinguisher and kill it. That's the world we live in. Can we deal with the 2 million who aren't a result of rape and incest and just have that exception there? Is that such a big problem? And when you're running for office, please stop talking philosophically.
The latest poll, USA Today Gallup, says that abortion at 39% is the #1 issue for women in 12 swing states. Are you surprised by that? I'm
suspicious of that. I understand from pollsters that a very dangerous way to take a poll is to give people a multiple choice answer, because respondents feel like they're taking an IQ test and will check off the one they think is the correct answer. There is no correct answer, and the way you should really ask polls like that is to have a fill-in-the-blank question, which is why insane things like campaign finance reform would show up very high on polls. Would you like
Romney, if he wins, to overturn Roe versus Wade, as he has threatened to in the past?
Well, I don't think it's much of a threat. I mean, it seems to me from much of the public dialogue, people seem not to realize that even if Roe is overturned, abortion up until the last minute, and even the doctors and nurses chasing the fetus through the hallways, will always be legal in New York, Chicago, California. Roe is...
See, when you started your position about, I actually think this guy, Murdoch, is wrong, and because he should have... How hard is it to say that actually an exception of rape, incest, and so on? I think, you're perfectly normal when you speak like that. I get it. You can have that position, and it seems reasonable. And then you start going on about babies being carried through corridors. It's like, no, but you're taking it to such a ridiculous extent.
I didn't. It was President Obama taking it to a ridiculous extent. He supports partial birth abortion. That is when the baby is entirely delivered, except for the head. The head is punctured and the brain suctioned out. That is a brutal, sick, savage procedure. I think we could agree on that. I think we could agree on parental notification in a lot of cases, or the husband being notified. States would be allowed to finally pass their own laws. Overturning Roe v. Wade is Dunkirk. It is not D-Day for pro-lifers. It just means it goes back to the states. And I promise you, in the state of New York and the state of California, abortion is going to be legal until after the baby is born.
Why did you call President Obama a retard? Let me preface it with, you're a very intelligent woman. You're very controversial. You're very intelligent. And you would have known absolutely the furore that would have come up from this. Here's the tweet that you tweeted. It was during one of the debates.
At the end of the third debate.
Right. But when you read that back, you know what you did there. You know it was a deliberately incendiary thing to say. You knew that you were using a word that would be latched on by everyone who has a disability in America as their equivalent of the N-word to black people.
I think...
Why did you do it?
I think you are doing what you were so testy with Sununu doing to... Colin Powell. You were just interpreting and announcing to the world what my motives were. I was sending out a tweet.
I didn't announce anyone's motives.
Yes, you did. You did it because you knew it would be incendiary. No, I sent out a tweet that I thought was relevant at the moment, and it was because at the end of the third debate, all the chit-chat was, Why was Romney so gentle? Why didn't he go after Obama on Benghazi? Why didn't he go after Obama on the Benghazi cover-up?
But why call the President of the United States a retard?
Because it's a synonym for loser, and we were spending 10 seconds on this, or it's going to be another 2 years before I come on. Because I am
you're threatening me.
Angry at the word police. I need an Encyclopedia Britannica to see what words are appropriate and which ones aren't. Okay, explain to me why retard is inappropriate.
Because I heard you this morning say, look, what if I'd said imbecile, idiot, cretin, or moron?
That was 2 nights ago.
Right, whatever. Any of those 4 words, as you know, has not become, in the last decade or so, a word that is synonymously offensive to people with disability and is used in a offensive way about them by people. That is the difference.
Do you call people with mental disabilities retards? Because I don't, and I think that's a nasty thing to do.
A lot of people do to be offensive, yes.
No, they don't.
They do, and you know that.
They absolutely do not, and you know they do not.
Of course you
know no one would call a Down syndrome child a retard. It is synonymous with loser. You know perfectly well no one would use that.
That's complete nonsense.
You know what would have been offensive?
No, wait a minute. You're going away with it. That is complete nonsense. That's the whole point. The whole point, if you talk to people who work with Down syndrome, children or whatever, they will all tell you...
You're going to keep saying that this is offensive and you're just wasting time because we only have 10 more seconds on this. We're getting to the next topic because, okay, it's offensive, you're going to come up with 20 different ways to tell me it's offensive. It's offensive according to whom? Moron, idiot, cretin, imbecile. These were exactly like retard, once technical terms to describe people with mental disabilities. Changing the word doesn't change the condition. I was not referring to someone with Down syndrome. I was referring to the President of the United States.
I know that.
I didn't make a joke about Special Olympics the way the President did. I didn't make a joke about extra chromosome right-wingers the way Al Gore did. Those are specific conditions. I didn't call the President a Down syndrome child. I used the word retard the same way people use idiot, cretin, moron, and the rest of them, which were all once technical terms, and I've had it with the language police, and you were wrong that, oh, no one else is laughing. Everyone is fed up with the language police.
Actually, they're not, but you wouldn't use the N-word, would you? You've already said that.
Oh, not the N-word argument. Okay, now we are back to my book mugs. No. And of course not.
Why would you make any exceptions? Why would you allow the word police, as you put it, to make any exceptions?
I should have called my book 3 books back about guilty liberal victims and their assault on America. Everybody wants to be black. No, unless you went through slavery and went through Jim Crow, I do not want to hear victims bullying the rest of America. And this is what has happened, whether it's the Jersey girls or the spokesman for the disabled. It's not the disabled, it's the self-appointed spokesman word police. The feminists on this word or that word. The gays on, oh, you can't say, oh, that's so gay now.
But you don't use the N-word because you know that it would get you into serious trouble.
No, I would never use it.
You know that it's deeply offensive.
I'm sorry, you're doing what Sununu, you're so upset Sununu did to Colin Powell. You're going to read my mind to tell me why I would use a word or not use a word. No, you're wrong. I wouldn't use the N-word because it's a curse word.
Will you carry on using the word retard?
Yeah, you've done it since that tweet.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Even though you've seen disabled people say, please stop using it.
No, disabled people are saying it. These spokesmen for the disabled
people are. They are.
Yeah, I'm sure they were following my Twitter feed. This has nothing to do with disabled people. It was about the president. They have injected themselves into a tweet they have nothing to do with. No, I would think that maybe Biden should be upset by me calling the president a retard, but not an actually disabled person.
Let's take another break. Let you calm down a bit.
Oh, yeah, I think you could move on to a better subject.
It's an interesting subject.
No, it isn't.
It should be with a guy with beautiful... someone who really cares about and understands women. A guy who cares whether you get health insurance, and specifically whether you get birth control. The consequences are huge. My first time voting was amazing. It was this line in the sand. Before I was a girl, now I was a woman. I went to the polling station, I pulled back the curtain, I voted for Barack Obama.
The new Lena Dunham ad for President Obama and Coulter is back. I'm sure you loved that, didn't you?
Yes, it's going to be my exhibit henceforth for both of the groups I want to take the vote away from, young people and women, all in one combo platter.
You would take away the female vote, would you?
Yes, I've become quite famous for making that point.
What is the point?
That it was a rash experiment and we should reconsider the 19th Amendment. You
called me in the break a sexist, misogynist pig.
Yes.
Can you explain why?
Yes.
What have I said that's been remotely sexist?
Calm down. Oh, if it is the conservative female's
you were
obligation to... I'm not hyperventilating. I'm disagreeing with you, which apparently is insulting your teeny tiny male ego. It is the most insulting, condescending, sexist thing to say to a female, generally conservative, who disagrees with you. No, it's my obligation to back down and accept your point. And if I don't, you're not being calm.
I've never heard you back down or apologise for anything. And I think when you call the President of the United States a retard...
Oh, we have moved on from that.
Final point on it. A little part in your brain cell should go off and say, you know what, Anne? I just overstepped the mark.
Yeah, okay, explain to me why that is different, again, from cretin, moron, idiot.
For the same reason that the N-word has become completely unacceptable.
The N-word has never been anything but an
because of the offence it causes to the black community.
No, the N-word, that's like saying the F-word.
Let me finish my sentence.
You can't just say everything is the N-word.
Let me finish my sentence. I would argue...
calm down.
I would argue the word retard has become equally unacceptable to people with disability in America.
About any word
because it
they
is the
decide
one
they
word
want to
of
ban.
all those words, and I got them all out from the dictionary. It's the one word that has been used in the last decade or so. It has. Just where you're so wrong.
No, it isn't. And you can't just go around. It isn't a better argument to say, oh, and broad, that's like using the N-word. And illegal immigrant, that's like using the N-word. And gay, that's like using the N-word. All you're doing is making a different argument for the same argument. We are the authoritarian word police.
I've used the argument
and we
once.
will tell you which words you can use and which words you can't use. Making a joke about Special Olympics is making a joke about something that actually exists. That is what President Obama did. I would not have done that. I would not make a joke about a Down syndrome child. Retard is the same as idiot, cretin, moron. It means loser. That's what it has meant for 30 years, and the word police come in 5 minutes ago and say, no, we're going to be bossy and tell you what to do. They're the biggest bullies of all these self-appointed victims.
My God, you're calling other people bossy. I've heard it all. Let's turn back to Mugged, your book.
Excellent.
And give me a parallel between the book and the current election and what's going to happen. Who's going to win the election?
I think it's going to be Romney. I've thought that since he was the nominee.
You didn't want him as nominee, though?
No, there was a brief period where, as I say, I ran off with the biker, Chris Christie.
Yeah.
But I came back to the responsible choice, and I think, I mean, the reason I said 2 years out, when people were still thinking Sarah Palin might be the nominee, or, you know, Ron Paul, it was a long time out when I said, if we don't run Christie, it'll be Romney and he'll lose. I took that back 6 months later because Obama's made such a mess of the economy. I travel a lot out in America, and people are really, really hurting. There are a lot of people who are unemployed, underemployed. They know they're not doing what they should be doing. Obamacare is coming down the track like a bullet train, and a lot of people are going to have to go out of business or have already gone out of business.
Where do you give Obama credit? Because the most powerful arguments I hear are where a Republican can give the Democratic president some credit, and vice versa, where a Democrat can give Mitt Romney some credit. Where do you credit the president?
I like the drone attacks. I don't know why liberals like the drone attacks. I mean, if you're going to compare waterboarding a couple of terrorists at Guantanamo 3 times to attacks on civilian populations to get 1 or 2 terrorists, I would say that the waterboarding is way better than that. But I think it's worth getting the terrorists.
The only thing you can say positive about Barack Obama is he's deployed drone attacks.
But that's one pretty big thing.
Do you think it was right to end the war in Iraq? I know he didn't start that process, but he certainly finished it. To announce a timetable for withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. Are you in favour of that? Well,
I can't say I'm in favor of the withdrawal since I was against the escalation. I don't know what the point of sending more troops to Afghanistan was other than fulfilling a talking point on the campaign trail. In order to bash Iraq, Obama and all Democrats took the position that Iraq was the bad war, the war of convenience. Afghanistan, good war, war of necessity. No, it wasn't. All we needed to do was take out the Taliban, leave a few troops behind. Bush had managed the Afghanistan war beautifully. Sending more troops was utterly pointless other than to fulfill a talking point. Iraq is a place where you have a real shot for genuine regime change and a genuine democracy in that godforsaken area of the world. We need an Arab Israel over there. That was Iraq, and I do think we pulled troops out too fast from Iraq and should never have sent more troops to Afghanistan.
Let's take a little break. I've decided to award you one more segment. You've been kind of blissfully annoying, so I'm giving you an extra segment.
Okay, now we're down to 12 months.
Now for a special bonus segment with Ann Coulter. Lots of tweets pouring in, a lot deeply offensive to both of us, but one here from a Robert Gillian says, Piers Morgan, opposites attract. Do I see love in the air with Ann Coulter? I think I speak for both of us when I say, no, Robert, you don't. Now, your book here is dedicated to the freest black man in America.
Yes.
Who is that?
Yes, well, it's supposed to be a little crackerjack surprise that you have to read the book for, but since this smash bestseller has been out there for 4 weeks, probably a lot of people already know the answer. And if you followed me on Twitter, you'd know, because I came across it. It was what Shelby Steele said about Clarence Thomas. And it was such a beautiful quote in such a beautiful interview. I tweeted out a big section of it when I was doing the research for this book. And then at the end, I just thought, that's it. He's the one who, according to Shelby Steele, doesn't play the game, doesn't play it on either sides. He's been such a brave man and such a great Supreme Court justice. And the other great thing about it is a lot of people who have read the book and know what a huge fan I am of Thomas Sowell's have guessed that it's Thomas Sowell. And that would be a very good second choice for a dedication.
You see, when I hear you speak again like that, you seem perfectly normal. I can't equate that kind of normality with these outrageous things that you come out with.
There's nothing outrageous.
There is, though.
No, there is liberals' reaction because liberals love being self-righteous.
I'm not a liberal. I'm just a normal guy doing a TV show.
You are definitely not normal.
No, but why do you do it? Is it just for commercial gains? Is it a brand thing? Why do you press those little buttons which just go
I'm not pressing
a little bit
buttons.
too far?
I speak the way I speak when I am with my friends or anyone else, and I make my points in a way that I think will be interesting and amuses me. I mean, when you write a book, for example, you have to read it through a dozen times, more than that, just reading it through to edit and cut things out. If it's not entertaining, it's going to be a long, tough haul.
Do you like being offensive?
Oh, please, I am not offensive. I'll tell you, liberals like being offended is the issue.
No, a lot of people find you deeply offensive.
Oh, they do not.
They do.
They love getting on their high horses.
You have a lot of fans, too. Obviously, you sell millions of books, but a lot of people find you deeply offensive. Do you mind that?
Well, manifestly not. It's kind of a gift.
A gift to be offensive?
Well, no, to annoy liberals, which isn't very hard, by the way.
Could you ever date a liberal?
No.
Really? Literally?
No, and we are not discussing dating. This interview was going so well, you had gotten it down to only 12 months before I come back.
But these are your
We're not going into dating.
That's your criteria for returning. I haven't established mine. My criteria is you are banned for 13 months. See you next year.
Thank you. See you next year.
The book is called
I am cold. Oh, yeah, let's shake hands.
Fist bump. It's called Mugged, Racial Demagoguery from the 70s to Obama, lover or hater. And I can't quite work out where I am on that one. It's certainly a compelling read.
Ann Coulter, liar.
See you in 13 months. Next, the other side.